This episode is brought to you by HASA. Liquid is clearly better. Liquid chlorine is the highest purity, works immediately, has no added cyanuric acid or calcium, and it will leave your pool safe, clean, and clear. And by the Bottom Feeder professional grade battery powered vacuum system. It sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off with code DVB100.
This episode is brought to you by Skimmer, the #1 pool service software in North America. With Skimmer, you can streamline your schedule, grow your revenue, and keep your customers coming back with 5-star service. Whether you're a one-person operation or an established team, Skimmer is your partner in success. Visit getskimmer.com/poolguy to try Skimmer for free for 30 days.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hi, and welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to answer some YouTube comments and questions and unpack them a little further. I'm going to talk about the Aquastar pipeline filter, also adding boric acid to the pool, and I'll cover some other things like the Sunken Treasure. And to find out what that is, you got to listen to the questions and answers here in this podcast. Are you a pool service pro looking to take your business to the next level? Join the Pool Guy coaching program. Get expert advice, business tips, exclusive content, and get direct support from me. I'm a 35-year veteran in the industry. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, I've got the tools to help you succeed. Learn more at swimmingpoollearning.com. So the first question is, I'm thinking about installing the Aquastar Pipeline 27,000 gallon version on a 12,000 gallon pool with 1.5 inch plumbing. Do you think there's a flow issue with dropping from 2 inch to 1.5? And I'm going to say that if you're servicing pools right now, you probably have some older pools that have 1.5 inch plumbing. And if you notice anything different about these pools, there really isn't a marked difference in my opinion. Yes, you're probably going to have a little bit less water flowing back to the pool. A lot of these also have like 1 inch return lines if they're really old. And that's going to, of course, cause less water to return to the pool. And the flow is probably going to be slowed down slightly. But I really don't think there's a huge difference. It's not like night and day when you're going from 2 inch to 1.5 inch plumbing. So for this particular filter, since it is designed to increase the flow of the pool, it may have a slight effect on it. But overall, I don't think 1.5 inch and 2 inch plumbing is a real dramatic difference. Now, of course, in the PVC size, it looks different and it may look dramatic, but it really isn't. And I haven't really had too many problems with 1.5 inch plumbing with larger filters or filters that have greater flow like the pipeline filter. You can even go with the larger one, the one that's rated for 35,000 gallons. I kind of like the larger one myself, but you can get away with the smaller one with no problem. I would also assume, since it has 1.5 inch plumbing, it's probably a 1 horsepower pump at the most. So that's also going to cause less flow going to the pool already. I haven't seen 1.5 inch plumbing with like a 2.5 horsepower pump on there. It just wouldn't be necessary or effective because you don't really need that kind of power. So yes, going from a filter that's rated for 2 inch plumbing to 1.5 inch doesn't really make a huge difference. Here's another one here on adding boric acid. It says, great content. This is for the podcast episode that I did on adding borates to the pool, and that was episode 1672. And it says, you recommend diluting boric acid in a bucket before putting it in the water, or can I just add it in small increments directly to the pool? Now, if you're using, he wants to add 30 pounds, by the way, and if you're using like a pre-blended product like the Optimizer, or even the natural chemistry boric acid, the instructions tell you to scoop it into the skimmer, and it's perfectly safe to put it in the skimmer if you're using that product. If you just get the boric acid powder, let's say you're getting it from Duda Diesel, which is my source, they'll ship it to you FedEx, and it's a pretty good product. If you're just adding that directly, you can add that actually directly into the pool by broadcasting it with the pool running. It really has no negative effect. It's slightly lower in pH. It's not quite pH neutral, but it's not going to drastically reduce the pH in the pool. I usually start this process with a pH of 7.8 or even 8.0, and then when you add the boric acid powder, it'll drop the pH down slightly. And they ask about adding 30 pounds. Now, the instructions on these pre-measured products or these manufactured branded products say not to add more than, I believe they say not to add more than 20 pounds at each time you're adding it to the pool. That makes logical sense. You don't want to be putting 50 pounds in there at one time. So I would say add 20 pounds one time, and then the next day or the following week, add the other 10 pounds and you'll be fine. And again, you can broadcast it into the pool, and it has really little effect on the pool itself. And since it's a powdered form, it's not going to fall to the bottom and maybe burn the surface, which it probably won't anyway. And I like the boric acid powder over the boric acid granular. Now, some of these premixed products like the optimizer and the boric acid from Natural Chemistry, it's not quite as powdery as if you were to buy the powder, so it's more of a granular, and that's why they have you put it through the skimmer versus broadcasting it in the pool, because it's not quite a powder. And I prefer the powder because you can just broadcast it in the pool if it's not too windy, and it'll be distributed in the pool very easily that way. Here's a couple of questions that I received from the PoolRx video, PoolRx Plus video. One of them is, how do I prevent debris from clogging up the shell? I find that it's hard to keep it clean and free of debris. And the shell is actually there to, yes, protect the anode. It does offer some protection from it, but you don't really need it in cases where you have like St. Augustine grass, or if there's a lot of debris in your pool all the time and it's getting clogged up. I would say just crack the shell and even remove it from the shell and throw the shell away. And again, you can operate the PoolRx without the shell. The other reason why there's that case is because the minerals are actually in the case itself. And so when you put it in the pump basket or skimmer basket initially, the minerals will dissolve out. And that's kind of how they store the minerals in the actual plastic shell itself. It's at the very top. If you take it out, you can actually see the blue minerals at the top of the case. And so the shell is not super critical with a PoolRx. You can break it, crack it open, whatever you want to do, and it'll work perfectly fine. Just don't throw away that anode. Otherwise, you're only going to have about 2 or 3 weeks use of the minerals that are in the pool. The minerals go over that again and recharge it. And then the second question I have here is that they're running their pool 24/7, and with the pump running on low speed 24/7, is this a problem? And, low speed, I don't know how you would define it. There's different speeds. There's like 1200 RPMs, 1400 RPMs. I would even consider 1800 RPMs a lower speed. And running your pool 24 hours on a low speed like that is perfectly fine with the PoolRx. As long as it's circulating, the minerals are going to be circulating in the water, going over the PoolRx unit, recharging it, going back into the water. In fact, it might be even preferred to run the pool 24 hours in a lot of cases than not running it for like a 5 or 6 hour period. So I understand why they're running it for 24 hours a day. And it's not using up a lot of electricity either. And it's one of those things where the PoolRx works effectively. The longer you run the pool, the better in most situations. And running the pool on a low speed for 24 hours a day with the PoolRx is perfectly fine. And if you haven't tried the PoolRx, I think it's a great product. It's a great algicide. It lasts 4 to 6 months, and it's a really effective product. And I would definitely give it a try in your pool if you haven't tried that yet. So here's one that I find interesting, and this was posted on the episode where I talk about the combo approach for trichlor, episode 1671, podcast 1671. It says, so if my cyanuric level is 50 parts per million and I use liquid chlorine, you're saying I'd have to add chlorine every day because I'm not adding stabilized chlorine? Isn't that the point of having CY already in the pool at 50 parts per million? It will stabilize whatever liquid you put in. Forgive me on my misunderstanding. And there is a little bit of misconception here with cyanuric acid in the water. I'm going to throw in a few variables here as well. One of them is that it's the middle of summer and you have a high UV index, and let's just say it's 90 degrees out that week, and you have 50 parts per million of cyanuric acid in the water. It's a pretty good level. Let's just say you have a 15,000 gallon pool, because they didn't say how big their pool was, and you add the gallon of liquid chlorine into there. You're going to bring that chlorine level up to maybe, let's say it was at 3 or 4 parts per million. So you just brought the chlorine level up to like 12 or 13 parts per million. Now with that 50 parts per million of cyanuric acid, it's going to protect the chlorine up to about 5 parts per million. So already initially when you put that gallon in, a lot of that chlorine within the first day is going to burn off with the sun's UV rays. So let's just say for sake of argument, Tuesday morning, you wake up, you test the pool, and you're at 5 parts per million. Kind of going with this logic here that I'm using for my math. And so you're at 5 parts per million on Tuesday. Now, Bob Lowry states that you're going to lose about 1 part per million of free chlorine every day in the summer under just normal conditions. We're not talking about people swimming in the pool, but just as the sun is hitting the pool as you're in the summer, you lose about 1 part per million per day. So on Tuesday, you're at 5. On Wednesday, you're at 4. Thursday, you're at 3. And by Friday, you're going to be at 2 parts per million. And that's why you're going to have to add liquid chlorine again to the pool within a few days. Now, maybe not the next day, but within a few days, you're going to have to recharge that pool with some liquid chlorine because you naturally will lose about 1 parts per million per day. It's kind of logical. You have the pool running, you have the sun hitting it, even though the cyanuric acid is protecting it. It's not like it's a shield that's going to keep it at 5 parts per million. And that's why trichlor tablets, of course, are popular because they're releasing a small amount of the chlorine to the pool every day and giving you that residual chlorine. With liquid chlorine or cal hypo, since it's not stabilized or has no cyanuric acid, you're not getting the benefit of that. Plus, liquid chlorine is not slow dissolving. You're pouring the whole gallon into the pool or half a gallon, and it goes in the water right away. So it's actually dissolving in solution at that moment, and it's not going to stay in the water like a trichlor tablet will and slowly dissolve into the pool water, if that makes sense. So yes, you're going to have to add more chlorine during the week if you're using liquid chlorine or cal hypo. And if you're using trichlor tablets, again, with this combo approach that I talk about in the episode, it's really not a bad idea to use 1 or 2 trichlor tablets. 1 tablet's fine, and then use liquid chlorine. And that way, when you add liquid chlorine, you're bringing up the chlorine level, but then the tablet is slowly dissolving in the pool, adding some chlorine to the pool. And usually, you won't have to add any more liquid chlorine for the entire week. You get back to the pool the following week, you can add another tablet, and then add another gallon of liquid chlorine or however much the pool calls for, depending on the parts per million. And that's kind of how you maintain the chlorine level without having to worry about it if you're going to use a combination of trichlor tablets and an unstabilized chlorine like liquid chlorine. So I hope I clarified that yes, with a non-stabilized chlorine, the cyanuric acid in the pool will protect it, but naturally the free chlorine level will drop in the pool daily, and you'll need to add chlorine sometime midweek if you're not using tablets to bring that chlorine level back up. Now here's a thing that was posted on one of my videos. It says, my favorite dispenser for trichlor tablets is a Sunken Treasure. It dispenses chlorine from the bottom, and it works great. It cuts my chlorine demand in half. I put 4 or 5 pucks in my 25,000 gallon pool. I only use 2 pucks now, and it's quite stable since it's underwater instead of floating, and you don't lose anything with evaporation in Texas. So this is a product you can get it on Amazon. It's called the Sunken Treasure. Let me pull it up here, and you can see that it has pretty good reviews on Amazon. And right away you're going to be thinking the same thing that I thought. When a trichlor tablet falls out of a floater and goes to the bottom of the pool, it leaves a pretty bad stain on the bottom. And this product here, of course, the tablet's going to be in this shell, and there's kind of slits on the side, but you're still pretty close to the bottom of the pool, and will it stain the pool? So if you look at the 1-star reviews, there's quite a lot of them. There's a lot of 5-star reviews as well, but the 1-star reviews, just about every single 1-star review has a comment saying that it stained their vinyl liner, it stained their gunite pool, it stained their plaster. And one of the dangers with this product, of course, is that it can probably stain the pool surface sitting on the bottom of the pool. And it's something that you have to keep in mind with this particular product. Now, it's probably going to reduce your chlorine usage because it's releasing chlorine at the bottom of the pool. That makes some logical sense because, it's chlorinating at the deep end of the pool or at a deep area of the pool, and the chlorine's being dispersed a lot better than at the surface. That makes sense to me. It's no different really than an inline chlorinator though, where you can put the tablets in there by the equipment, and then it actually puts the chlorine into the pool through the return jets. It's not a huge difference in that respect, but I would be cautious about this product, putting tablets in there and letting it sit on the bottom of your pool, especially for a vinyl liner or a pool that's maybe a dark colored plaster, because if you look at the product itself, there is a possibility for staining because the tablet has a pH of like 2.7, and if it's sitting on the bottom in this plastic container even, and some of that, the chlorine comes out of the sides of it, it can potentially stain it if it stays in that one area for a long period of time. So be cautious of this device, and I would definitely do your homework on it, and I probably wouldn't recommend using it for the reason that it has a good high potential of staining the bottom of the pool. On the same note, one reason why you want to tie your trichlor floater to maybe your skimmer lid or tie it to a rail away from the step area is that same concept. You have this floater with the tablets in the bottom of the floater with those little holes in it. And if this were to sit over a step area, not necessarily sitting on the step itself, but the first step is usually about 10 inches or 8 inches into the water. So this chlorinator is actually floating right above the step, and all that chlorine, the trichlor, is coming out of those notches in the floater. And if it doesn't move out of the step area and move around your pool, all that concentrated chlorine starts coming out of the floater, and you're going to see a burn mark on your first step of the pool. It could be a burn mark maybe 8 inches by 10 inches. Sometimes they're smaller. Sometimes they're even just the size of the bottom of the floater. But it's going to nonetheless burn that first step in your pool if the floater is just sitting there in that area and you're putting trichlor tablets in it. Just be aware again that the trichlor tablet has a very low pH. It's an acid, cyanuric acid, and it will burn anything that it touches. So be careful again with the floater by the step area, or if a tablet falls out into the bottom of the pool, you want to pick it up right away. And I'd be again cautious about the Sunken Treasure because there is a potential, a pretty good potential of the trichlor burning the plaster or burning the bottom of the pool. If you're looking for other podcasts that I have here, you can find them on my YouTube channel by subscribing. Monday through Friday, I post a podcast. And again, if you post questions on YouTube, I'll answer them briefly and I'll unpack them more in one of these types of podcasts. And if you're interested in more podcasts, you can find those on my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. On the banner, there's a podcast icon that'll take you to a drop-down menu of other podcasts I've recorded. And if you're interested in my coaching program, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. The bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.